Welcome to another episode of Tim's Enthusiast Garage. This time on Tim's Enthusiast Garage, the Honda Beat, a tiny, very tiny mid-engine, 660cc, high-revving K-car. Another episode of Tim's Enthusiast Garage is here, and this time I'm wearing a James May shirt, and I've got the Honda Beat. Why the James May shirt? Because fun and whimsy is what this K-car segment is all about, so why not dress fun? What I'm just now realizing is that the Beat is even smaller on the passenger side than it is on the driver's side. This is a tiny car, as will be demonstrated by the fact that I bought a normal size Momo shift knob for it, and it looks like the shift knob out of a semi-truck. Another question I get all the time is that the stock interior? Yes, this is the stock interior. I wanted to find one that had this zebra print because, again, it's fun times. That's really what this car is all about. One other question I get quite a bit is, how do you fit in the car with the top up? Which I will now demonstrate. Let me say before that as with many other convertibles that I own, I rarely put the top up on these cars. I have enough cars that pretty much this car gets pulled in the garage, and I've never used the top. So I may be the wrong person to ask about that, but I do fit underneath, and so will you. So in terms of headroom, definitely not getting a helmet on in here, that's for sure. This was in an era before cars had like a 7 to 8 year life expectancy. They built these things to go the distance, and it shows. Everything still works on this car. All the switches are still firm. Even the air conditioning is still cold, and I don't see that it's ever been recharged. That's pretty impressive on a car this old. Season 2 of Tim's Enthusiast Garage is getting a little bit JDM. I realize that. We will talk about other cars that aren't JDM vehicles, I promise. But since we mentioned the Honda Beat so much in the Alto Works episode, and since it may have even come up in the GTR episode, I felt like we kind of had to do the Honda Beat right now. And since it's the summer, that's when you're going to use this car anyways. I thought a lot about what did I want to say about the Honda Beat. And I think one thing that needs to be said about the Honda Beat, people ask me all the time, how is it compared with the Miata? And the answer is, it's a K car, so it's much smaller, but also much cooler than a Miata. So how does it compare with a Miata or another small car? I think that's what we're gonna focus on in this episode. Design-wise, I love the way this opens. I think it looks beautiful. There's a lot of thoughtful design on the Honda Beat, but a lot of people assume that this is where you're gonna put some luggage. You are not putting any luggage up here. In fact, maybe you can put a small bag of things in the spare tire well, but there's really nowhere to put anything in this car. That's one. You would think, let's open the back, I'll pull the trunk release. There is no trunk release, you have to use a key. That's another thing about the Beat that I found kind of weird, is that it has a gas door release, but there's no release for the trunk. The only way to get in it is with a key. I've actually used it to take some stuff on my last trip, so let's see what I packed in the trunk. Oh, voluminous, absolutely voluminous. I've got a poster, a gimbal, a tiny rucksack, and that's about it. I wanted to have the Gather CD changer, and it takes up the entire trunk. While the Beat isn't a mid-engine supercar, it is a mid-engine car, and the intake duct at the back and the staggered wheels, which measure an amazing 13 by 4.5 and 14 by 5 inches, set off the car nicely. I like the phone dial look. It's very cool in a period way. The mid-engine look of the car is something that I find more enjoyable than the Cappuccino's front engine layout. The Beat often gets compared with cars like the Cappuccino. The interesting thing about K cars is the diversity. Yes, they share sizes, but other than that, layout, everything else is free, and the Japanese took every liberty possible, bringing cars like the Beat to fruition. Tiny storage space, tiny 660cc M-Trek 3-cylinder engine, but the 3-cylinder engine has independent throttle bodies and sounds fantastic at 9,000 RPMs. That's really one of the best things about the Beat, is the engine. And in true Honda fashion, everything else is pretty good too. The gear shifter is great, the suspension is great, although extremely soft, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it is a lot of fun. It's definitely 1,600 pounds worth of absolute good times. Now, most of the Honda Beats you're going to find when you're in the market for a Honda Beat are from the very beginning of production. They made most of the 33,000 right out of the gate and then kind of slowed down from there. There's other colors and that sort of thing added later in the car's production run, but for the most part, this is how the Honda Beat came. Now, there's a lot of things you need to look out for. One is that the car has had good service, and you want to avoid one that's rusty. This car had a botched fix here, and it's important to note that when you're importing cars, a lot of cars are spruced up right before they're imported. So make sure you look at everything, and at least if it does have an issue, you understand what that is. With regards to servicing, that M-Trek engine is pretty stout, but you want to make sure that it's been kept up. It's had valve adjustments, it's had timing belts, and when you buy one of these cars, you want to make sure you get a car that has everything on it the way you want it. It can be really hard to find people to work on these cars or to get parts for them. So the real question is, do you want a Honda Beat? It is a cool car we didn't get in the States, and I definitely think that that's something that could be intriguing. I don't think it's going to be a crazy collectible where all of a sudden these are worth $100,000. They made a fair amount of them, and it really is a very specialized use vehicle. I bought it for my lake house. I think it's going to be super fun there, but let's take it for a ride and see what it's really good at and what it's not really good at. Again, soft suspension. One thing that is not expected about this car, first of all, is the sound. It sounds awesome. Second thing is that the suspension bottoms out really easily. It is way too soft. Definitely is designed to be a city car and leans and bottoms out, not like a performance car. So while the setup and weight distribution and everything else is very sporty, the looks are very sporty, and it sort of lives up to that half of an NSX thing. In many ways, the suspension is just way too soft for good times. So while many of you will say, Tim, you can put coilovers on the car, you can adjust the suspension. What you cannot adjust easily is the gearing on the car. That's another way that a car like a Miata or a similar price point small roadster wins out over this car. This thing screams on a road trip. One thing to consider about a K car is that you can drive it almost at 10 tenths. I mean literally 9 or 10 tenths all the time, and most of the time not be breaking any laws. Even flat out, this car is not fast. Now, it's fun and it's well balanced, so you can hold the car right on the edge of understeer and oversteer all the time at like 25 to 45 miles per hour. And in that way, it's definitely the kind of fun that you can't find in a lot of other cars. As the thresholds have gotten so high, you can't drive a car with such reckless abandon as you can with this car. You can redline it in every gear, pin it in every corner, and you're still within the bounds of the law most of the time. Amazing. In terms of collectability, you cannot deny the Honda Beat is a unique and special car. With its design roots in the heart of Pininfarina, and it's one of the last cars overseen by Soichiro Honda himself. I mean, if that doesn't add to the prominence, if that doesn't add to the legacy, I don't know what does. Sort of like when Enzo left the earth, everyone thought Ferraris are over. There is no more Ferrari. So it was when Honda passed. And the Beat is the very last one of those. So in that way, it is very collectible. It is cool. Should you buy one? You know, if this is going to be your only performance car, absolutely, I would say no. If you're trying to build out a Honda collection, I mean, if you've got an NSX and an Integra Type R, you need a Beat. I mean, you have to have one. If you want a nice car for a vacation home, this is a pretty cool car. You can never go wrong with adding a K car to a collection. They're full of whimsy, fun, and high-revving good times. And Motorvice. Do not forget to put a Motorvice event on your calendar. Come out to visit us. Our next show is February 1st in Tampa, Florida. Last year's event was totally awesome to the max. And if you come, this year will be even more totally awesome. We also have events in Columbus, Ohio and Virginia Beach. So check out motorviceshow.com or on Instagram @motorviceshow. In addition to Motorvice, do please check out my website where I have blog posts, products that you can buy that relate to the videos, as well as links to the videos themselves. Check it out, and please, with regards to this YouTube channel, it is imperative that you like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much for your support. See you next time.